This is the New York City FC Pregame Live. Tonight, New York City head down to Chester to take on the Philadelphia Union. And now, here are your hosts, Glenn Crooks and Matty Lawrence.
Yeah. Well, as you can well see, this is not Matty Lawrence. This is Sal Rosamilia, who will join me on the broadcast today, beginning at 7:15 with our live commentary as New York City on the road again against the Philadelphia Union. Sal, welcome. What's happening, man?
Collective. I heard the collective sigh and groan around the Tri-State area when they saw Matty wasn't here with you.
You'll have to keep pace with the cynical comments. That's the one thing that will certainly be missed. Although I know you're capable of a little dig every now and then.
The Carney is still there, still present.
That is a Carney guy, goalkeeper at Columbia University and beyond, a coach, commentator, and match director in Major League Soccer, Sal Rosamilia. So it's great to have you here. New York City coming off their first road win since July 2023 in Montreal. First time scoring 3 goals since last September against Toronto, who they beat 3-2 over the weekend up at BMO. And the last time they scored 3 goals on the road, it was at Montreal in the Eastern Conference playoffs, semifinals in 2022. Last time they scored 3 goals in a road match. So all good, with the exception of the end of the game, which got a little out of hand, and we're going to get into that. And although MLS has not given its final disciplinary report, there are some things that we can tell you about who might be suspended. And let's just put it this way. Toronto FC, they've signed 3 players to short-term contracts, and John Herdman will not be in the technical area tonight as the head coach of Toronto FC. For New York City, Strahinja Tanasijevic, we all saw him in the midst of things with Sean Johnson in particular. He has suffered a 2-game penalty, so he'll be out tonight against Philadelphia as well. He came in a little late in that Toronto match when New York City went to 5 in the back and preserve that 3-2 thing. So let's just see a couple of goals. What do you say, Sal? I know you weren't on the commentary here, but so it started when Hannes Wolf, the Austrian, had his best game as a member of New York City FC. He assisted on 2 of the 3 goals, but really, to me, he gets 3 assists because his crossing service with pace was handled by Longstaff, and it led to the opening goal in the match by Santi Rodriguez against you know who. This is a fairly interesting matchup here. You've got Santi Rodriguez against his former goalkeeper, Sean Johnson. Penalty attempts against Sean Johnson this year? None. I don't know how many times they may have done this in practice. Santi Rodriguez, in his younger days with New York City FC, not necessarily a taker of the PK, but he's standing at a spot right now. Santi Rodriguez wearing black gloves tonight. It's a little chilly here in Ontario. There's the whistle. Approaches, shoots, and beats Sean Johnson, who dove to his right. Rodriguez put it past Johnson on the opposite side. And New York City, here in the 23rd minute, takes the 1-0 lead on the road against Toronto FC.
Well, the first thing he does was he threw off his black gloves and went over to the stand. He'd been taking a little bit of a stick, shall we say, from the crowd for something that happened a little bit early. He's gone over, nothing gesticulating from Santi Rodriguez, just taking in the applause and some howls of derision.
All right, so Rodriguez with his 5th goal of the year. You saw James Sands behind him and giving him a hug from behind. Sands is not in the squad tonight. I am rolling the starting 11, and we'll go through that a little bit more thoroughly. But James Sands, part of the rotation in this 3 matches in 8 games, Sal, is not in the squad tonight. So Keaton Parks and Andres Pereira will start in the midfield. Pereira and Malachi Jones, who started in the previous game against Toronto, and scored, and we're going to show that in a moment. His first New York City FC goal in his first New York City FC start. He'll begin the game tonight on the bench. All right, let's just look at Malachi Jones' goal. I'm going to let you talk at some point, Sal. All right, Toronto back on the ball, but here's a giveaway, and it's Malachi Jones. He's in an isolated position, comes into the inside, right-footed shot, and it's a save by Sean Johnson. comfortable save by Johnson, but it's out for another New York City corner, and that's going to add a level of confidence to the rookie Malachi Jones. Eventually won by New York City, and Hannes Wolf prying it loose. Wolf on the dribble, and it's Flores again. It looked like he was going to take Wolf down. Now finds Malachi Jones, his first time shot, and it's his first goal! Malachi Jones! It kisses off the back post and rolls into the net, beating Sean Johnson. And how about that? First career start for Malachi Jones. And this is sixth appearance for New York City FC. And he scores in the opening half to give New York City a 2-goal advantage over Toronto FC in the 44th minute.
Well, this is all about Hannes Wolf. Hannes Wolf getting on the ball, fighting off Flores, and then we talk about it. Pass appreciation, weight of pass, rolls it in nicely to Malachi Jones, a little bit behind him, so he has to stutter step a bit, but he slides it into the corner of the goal. Who's not chasing down? Who's not tracking back? Bernardeschi. Bernardeschi gets out, runs to the ball. He arrives a yard late. Credit to Malachi Jones, who has been full of confidence in his 45 minutes. Previously, Glenn, I've gone on record, I've said it, he's looked a little bit out of his depth when he's come on, but he's been magnificent tonight, both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that's right. Malachi Jones, first goal in his first start. That made it 2-0 for New York City FC. Then it was 2-1. And then you're going to appreciate this, Mr. Goalkeeper, and Matt Freese, who you know well, and Phil Wedden, his keeper coach over at Philadelphia, who had such high praise for him when I called Phil up. And who is this guy Freese that New York City has traded for? Well, he has been sensational at the tail end of last year and then here in 2024. And it was interesting because we were waiting for Lorenzo Insigne. He was on the bench in this match at Toronto. When's he going to enter the game? He'd been out with health issues. And he finally came in, and this was his first touch coming up. And now it's Bernardeschi off the New York City throw and turnover. Bernardeschi driving on the right, square to Insigne, and a big save, not save! Not free for New York City FC, dives to his right. It was Insigne receiving the ball. He was free. He was by himself from 10 yards out. And Freese anticipates, extends, and New York City maintains a 1-goal lead thanks to Freese. Yeah, no question.
That's a goalkeeper that's really playing with confidence. He's moving, knowing where that Insigne is going to shoot that ball before he even does. And you don't do that unless you're really feeling pretty strongly. You're seeing the ball early. You're seeing it well. And that wasn't easy. Unlike the Johnson save, right, on Jones early, you said it was sort of comfortable because it was a little higher up, right?
Yeah,
it's more in the eyes. It's more in the vision. It's more at his hand level. That one there, Freese had to get down pretty low for it, maybe shin level. Difficult save, but one that you don't really see guys doing. He's moving a split second before he even hits that, and that's just because he's feeling good about himself.
That's awesome. And that kept it at 2-1. And then moments later, Andres Pereira scores to make it 3-1. Later, Federico Bernardeschi makes it 3-2, and then New York City hangs on. Now, Bernardeschi is not playing tonight in Nashville. In fact, Toronto is missing a lot of players and their head coach. So the well-publicized post-game melee, we're going to touch on it a little bit here because one thing that occurred is John Herdman, the head coach for Toronto FC, bumped Nick Cushing, and you'll see it if you watch the video, if you're watching this as opposed to just listening, and you may have seen this already. But this was Herdman a day later in a Toronto FC press conference, actually on Monday. His press conference was at 12:15, and then Nick was at 12:40, and then Nick spoke to me one-on-one at 1 p.m. on that Monday, kind of covering this. But this was Herdman about the bump. And what's being referenced is the March 16th match at Yankee Stadium. The New York City down a goal, came back and won 2-1. But there was a halftime incident. We saw some video of Nick Cushing jawing with Lorenzo Insigne, or they had looks, and there seemed to be words. And then Danny Flores gave Cushing a little bit of a shove. This is as they're walking towards the tunnel at halftime. And then there is something that happened in that tunnel leading to the locker rooms, which has not been specified. But what John Herdman said, and he didn't see it, and there's no film to corroborate what a 19-year-old told him, which we have to assume is Jaquil Marshall Rudy, and that is that Nick Cushing, this is according to John Herdman, this is the allegation, Nick Cushing threw a punch in the face of a 19-year-old who, again, we're assuming is Marshall Ruddy. So he didn't back down from that statement on Monday, and this is what he said about the bump of Nick Cushing after the game.
Well, I was just disappointed that it had kicked off again. That was my disappointment with the whole thing. You know, we finished the game. We were trying to do our thing in our own half, and you know, I felt their players were in our half of the field. They didn't need to be. I think given what had happened in the previous game, you take your 3 points, you shake the referee's hand, and you get it to your dressing room. I just felt it was unnecessary what was going on, and he seemed to be at the front of it again. If you go back to the halftime footage, coming off the pitch, he was in the midst of everything in the last game. You know, I did see the footage in the locker room, in the tunnel, of him inciting my players unnecessarily. Our players are just walking to their dressing room. So I got to see some of that behaviour, and I just think it's unnecessary. You had your 3 points, well done. You did a really good job coming into our stadium. You did a good job in New York, you know, making that comeback. I just felt that was unnecessary and, you know, disappointed, you know, really disappointed in myself that I got myself into that situation, but just a little bit emotional because it didn't need to happen. That did not need to happen. Just take your 3 points and get yourself home.
All right. So we're not there to really, it's tough to add a whole lot more other than the fact that we know Herdman has now accused Nick Cushing of inciting 2 incidents, one at Yankee Stadium on March 16th and in this postgame as well. Now, Nick takes a different tact. He has denied it emphatically. This was part of my one-on-one with Nick. You'll hear the whole thing coming up on our live commentary at 7:15 on the New York City FC network. You made a statement at your weekly presser regarding the post-game incident, and my thought of anyone that's in this profession or any profession, you were charged with something or alleged that something had happened back on March the 16th, and that is striking a 19-year-old player. That's according to the opposite coach, John Herdman, for Toronto. And John Molinaro from TFC Republic got you afterwards, and you said, I can honestly say as a head coach, I've done 348 games. I've never ever laid a finger on a player. So what is your response now a day later?
Like I said in my statement, I will repeat. The first I heard of the alleged incident was post-Toronto press conference on Saturday, the incident that was 2 months ago. I completely deny any accusation or allegation that I punched or had any kind of violence towards a Toronto player or member of staff. I'm shocked and upset by the allegation. We have proactively as a club reached out to MLS to investigate what happened post-match on Saturday, and I will leave it with the legal team and with MLS to continue that investigation, and you know, I think it's inappropriate and actually impossible for me to comment further on that.
All right. And as far as you know, though, prior to this match, you and John Herdman, I know we've talked about it. I think prior to the last match, that you guys have a relationship. You've talked about the game before. So is that where the shock comes from?
Yeah, I have huge respect for what John's achieved in the game previously. I said this. I think Toronto are a well-coached team. I think, you know, he is a guy that has coached many games in his career, and ultimately, you know, when we talk about the football and how we, you know, see the game, it's very similar.
Yeah. Interesting. What do you think?
Well, a couple things. Both managers are responding exactly the way they have to, right? Herdman is protecting his 19-year-old by not naming him, that's who he told, who he learned what had happened in March. But I'm not sure, nothing that he said how NYC behaved in either match is proven in that video there. I don't know what he wants them to do. The teams are together afterwards. That's a real scuffle, by the way. That's just not your normal like sports fight.
No, and we don't know everything that happened. And as far as Cushing, there seems to be a fairly severe dislike by Toronto FC, including players, against the head coach for New York City, Nick Cushing. So we don't know why all that is. and whether it's just you
But I
have
love-
to suspect that it's a carryover from whatever happened in that tunnel on March the 16th.
And I love Cushing's response too. And look, everybody's got cell phones these days. There's cameras all over every single arena.
Yeah.
And MLS sends people, match directors, match commissioners, observers. There's multiple observers on the ground as well, eyes and ears, watching everything. So Nick Cushing is responding exactly the way you would expect an innocent person to respond, knowing that I'm putting myself on the limb. I'm saying nothing as all has ever happened in my career, knowing that there's thousands of people with cell phones that might tell a different story. Nothing has come out since March. And we saw right there what happened, and I'm just a little surprised at Herdman's response there. But I'm happy that Cushing is defending himself so vehemently. Unless we see something video evidence wise, it's one word against another.
Well, my public statements have been coaching colleagues cannot accuse each other of something that dramatic, punching in the face, because that would be a fatal blow to the coaching career of the person who administered that. And
Woody Hayes, right?
Woody Hayes, the linebacker who intercepted the Art Schlichter pass and came to the sideline. Woody Hayes whacked him in the neck, and that was it. The legendary coach Woody Hayes is almost more noted for that than whatever all the different young men that he helped develop and championships that he won. Okay, so we're going to leave that where it is, other than to say that Tanasievich is the only New York City individual, player or staff member who has been suspended 2 games, and a host of players and John Herdman out of tonight's game. The most interesting, of course, is Richie Larea, who is not even in the squad. So wherever he came from and then got towards Nick Cushing is something that will be, I'm sure, further discussed and looked at closely by New York City, Toronto FC, and MLS. So it's Philadelphia tonight. Now, the Philadelphia Union, and we've got just a couple of minutes, Sal, and I do want to play this one Jim Curtin clip because I think it's wonderful, because he talks about his former goalkeeper, who is really simply a backup to Andre Blake, Matt Freese, who is now the number 1 for New York City FC. Let's go to Curtin, and this is what he had to say about Freese.
Yeah, Matt's having a great year. You talk about the data. He's had one of the best years statistically for goalkeepers. So happy for Matt. Look, with Matt and with every player, I think every case is different. With Matt, there was because he's such a great human being, great person, there was I don't want to say moral, thing where we decided to let him get a chance to be a starter. But, if you remember, Andre obviously was and still is the top goalkeeper in the league. So Matt didn't get his opportunities. We saw a window where he had a chance to become a starter. Took some time in New York City, but he's playing great right now and flying. So I'm happy for Matt. Tomorrow I want to beat Matt, but make no mistake about that. But I'm proud of what he's done. He's a great kid, great player. And like I said, all these relationships that you have with people through the game, tend to come back at certain moments in your lives and your careers. And Matt did great work for us. I loved working with the kid, but he's on a different team now. I know Matt would probably say the same thing. He still loves Philadelphia. He loved his time here, but he's on a different team now and wants to beat us. So that's the reality of competition. That's the reality of actual development. And he still is, like we've believed for a while, a top goalkeeper.
Yeah. So I love the part, moral obligation to move this kid on so he has a chance to play. He still had to beat out Luis Barraza, which he has done. And you see Barraza rolling as a substitute. He's been on the bench all year, has not gotten a game yet. And I have a feeling, Sal, that New York City will feel the same way about Barraza, because he's very much beloved in the squad. He's a good goalkeeper, but Freese is better right now. And maybe Barraza, whose contract expires at the end of this year, they move him to give him an opportunity. I don't know anything about that. I'm just suggesting that could be the case.
Yeah. Well, he had a great opportunity last year, right after Sean Johnson had left, played a bunch of matches. So there's film on him if other teams are interested. But Matt Freese, to me, is playing as well as anybody in MLS right now. And there's been games where NYC's been outplayed, and they've gotten results. And that's because of the play of Matt Freese, Ivy League goalkeeper, by the way, Harvard, shout out EV. So they've produced some pretty good goalkeepers.
I did a 20-minute interview with him 2 weeks ago. So go to my podcast On Frame. This week it's Malachi Jones. He's back to back. Just great stories from both these young men. Greg Kristen has asked, how can I listen to NYC radio for the game instead of the Apple broadcast? Good question.
Great question.
So it's NYCFC.com. Let me run that below for you. And then let's see, where is that banner? So you can see it here. See that? NYCFC.com/radio. If you have the NYCFC app or the TuneIn app, it's also on there. And then you have to do the syncing thing. So you have to wait for freeze us and wait for the video to catch up. I think that's the way it goes. One way or the other at the kickoff, and then you just boom. Yeah. So then and then it'll work. And
And if they would have listened to your podcast with Roberto, you and he explained
that's another
exactly
NYCFC
where to find
views.
it.
So all these things that people should be watching.
Are you guys okay? By the way, you guys got pretty heated in that podcast, man. If you were in the same room together, I think you may have finally come to blows. The two of you. You're like an old married couple.
We got to Well, that's true at times. That's true. We've been told that before. 3 changes for New York City. Keaton Parks in for James Sands. Micha Ilinich for Tavon Gray. Augustino Heda for Malachi Jones. Kickoff 7:40 tonight, but the kickoff for our broadcast 7:15 p.m. Eastern. So Greg, NYCFC.com/radio, and everybody else. And you got the Nick Cushing pregame show presented by Ford, and then our commentary to follow. So for Sal Rosamilia, I'm Glenn Crooks. Thanks so much for watching.